way to Christiana Hospital, and in the car, panic sets in again. Oh my God, we can't go through. If we go, our parents are going to kill us. Blah, 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 all these different things. So they decide instead of going to the hospital, they go to a motel. Right? And they think, people have been delivering babies for millions of years. We can do this. They go in a motel. They deliver the baby in a motel, little boy. They leave. When the lady comes to clean the room, she finds blood all over the place. Tells the manager. Manager calls the police. Police come and search the room. They look around outside the room. They go around the back in the dumpster. When they go in the dumpster, they pull out a dumpster. In plastic bags, a dead baby boy. They find her because she was at Christiana Hospital the next day because her body had never ejected the placenta after the birth, and it was getting her sick. So they put two and two together. They realized that's who it was. They went and did an investigation. Two of them ended up going to jail. It was national news. National. This is before the internet, before the way we do news now. It was in every newspaper. It was on every TV show, every news show on TV. It was all over the place. Everybody in the country knew the names Grossberg and Peterson. Now here's the interesting thing. If at any point in time, those two, once they found out they were pregnant, if at any point in time they would have just simply done what they were supposed to do, if they would have told their parents, if they would have gone to the hospital, there's so many decisions that they made where they didn't do what they were supposed to do. If just one time they would have, that poor baby wouldn't have died, their lives wouldn't have been ruined, right? But because they didn't, all kinds of craziness happened. And here's another thing. Do you think when they got together at Ramapo High School, do you think when they started to date, they said, hey, let's date, let's get really close, let's go to the senior prom, let's have unprotected sex, let's get pregnant, let's deliver the baby in a motel, and then let's put the baby in a dumpster? You think that was the plan? No way. There's no possible way that that was the plan. But things happen because they don't stop and have the courage to do what the right thing is. Do what you're supposed to do. It's really important. So this is a picture of a man looking into a mirror, seeing his younger self there. Tim Dunlap's favorite poem, and the poem that kind of ties this whole section up, is called The Man in the Glass. And it's about a man who's looking in the mirror. When you get what you want in your struggle for self, and the world makes you king for a day, just go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that man has to say. For it isn't your father or mother or wife whose judgment upon you must pass. The fellow whose verdict counts most in your life is the one staring back from the glass. You may be like Jack Horner and chisel a plum and think you're a wonderful guy, but the man in the glass says you're only a bum if you can't look him straight in the eye. He's the fellow to please, never mind all the rest, for he's with you clear to the end, and you've passed your most dangerous difficult test if the man in the glass is your friend. You may fool the whole world down the pathway of years and get pats on the back as you pass, but your final reward will be heartache and tears if you've cheated the man in the glass, right? And basically what it's saying is, you can't fool you. You can fool other people. See, people do it all the time. People cheat their way through school. They get good grades. People think they're a good student. And you can fool other people into thinking that, but when you go home and you lie down in that bed at night and you think back on, you can't fool you. You know what you did. So here's what successful people have figured out. They figured out that when they're lying in that bed at night and they're looking back on their day, in no way are they perfect. They don't try to be perfect. But when they screw up, they're accountable for it. They don't make excuses, and they make it better. Some people are really good at rationalizing their behavior. They make excuses for themselves so they don't have to feel guilty, so they can keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. That's what the man in the glass. So I call it taking the mirror test. At the end of the day, do you lie in bed and do you reflect on your day and you think about what you did and how you handled situations, and do you learn from it? Because that's what successful people do. They learn from it. So successful people, they work hard, they hold themselves accountable, all right? Successful people also have great attitudes, right? They have great attitudes. So I was one year sitting at my desk, I think it was 1986. I had just started teaching here at Garner Valley. It was the morning before school, I was grading papers, and I heard two kids out in the hallway, and the one kid was talking to the other kid, and he dropped about 15 F-bombs as he was talking to him. And I knew he didn't mean for anybody else to hear it. I know he was just talking to his friend. So after I got up, I walked out to him, I put my hand on his shoulder just like this, and I said, hey, I know you didn't mean for anybody else to hear you. I said, but I'm around the corner and I can hear you. And if I can hear you, other people can hear you. And you really shouldn't be talking like that at school. Right? Now, I thought that was a really nice way for me to handle that. His reaction was, Mr. Ricky, get your hand off me. Well, now my attitude changed, right? So here I was, 24 years old. You know, my first thought, and obviously I would never do this, but was to take him, stick his head against the wall and put him back, right? So that's the first thought. Obviously you can't do that. But some people in the world, that's how they react. So I knew that wouldn't be good for me, and I knew it definitely wouldn't be good for him. So I took him over to the office. The office used to be right across from here. Put him in the office, sat him down. He goes, what are you doing, Mr. Ricky? I said, oh, no, this is not what I'm doing. This is what you're doing. So when you acted like a jackass out there in the hallway, you gave me no choice but to bring you in here. I need to go get Mr. Bruton. Mr. Bruton was the assistant principal. He got so mad that I was going to get Mr. Bruton that he got up from his chair, went over to the door, which was glass with wire through it, and punched his fist through the glass. Cut his arm up so bad they had to get an ambulance, took him to Riddle Hospital, ended up getting over 50 stitches in his arm. Then he came back to school. So now he had 50-some stitches in his arm. He had to pay over $500 for a new door. Instead of just probably getting a detention, he now had a 10-day suspension. Had to go up for an expulsion hearing in the school because that's not the kind of kid they wanted at school. And he made a complete idiot of himself in front of his entire school. All because of the way he chose to react, and that was the key. He chose to react that way. If he would have just simply said, oh man, Mr. Ricky, I didn't realize I was that loud, none of the other stuff happens. None of it. You get to choose the way you react in every situation that you're in. I see it on the athletic field all the time. When people get upset with the official. I see when people get upset with teachers. When they get up, hey, you get to choose. You, every situation you're in, you choose how you respond. And if you choose in a negative way, typically what follows is negative. If you choose a positive way, so this is the Great Wall of China I put up there, because my sister used to work for DuPont. And when she worked for DuPont, she was the worldwide marketing director for this fiber that they made in pillows. And DuPont was one of only 2 or 3 people in the whole world who made it. So at DuPont, they tried for years to get into the Chinese market because there were so many people in China, there was so much money that could be made. And they could never effectively create a relationship with anybody over there to have this meeting. Well, my sister somehow did it. But it wasn't a meeting, you couldn't call on Monday and say, I'll be there on Wednesday. Right? This meeting took 6 months of planning, 6 months of preparation, 6 months of learning the culture, right? And she finally flew over there. And when she flew over there, she flew over on a Sunday night, and the meeting was going to be on Monday morning. So when she got there, she went to get something to eat. And whatever she ate was bad, and she ended up throwing up all night long, right? Puked her guts out. But she couldn't cancel the meeting. This was 6 months in the making. This was a huge meeting for DuPont. So she soldiered through. She took a shower the next morning. She had her briefcase with her and some tissues. She got in the car to go to this building where she's going to meet with 3 CEOs from the 3 biggest companies in China. She gets in the car. She's driving down a road very similar to I-95, and she feels the urge. She knows she's going to throw up again. Right? The guy doesn't speak any English. She's trying to get his attention. She realizes there is no international sign language for pull over, I have to puke. Right? So she finally gets the guy to pull over on the side of the road. She jumps out of the car, she goes over the guardrail, and she pukes her guts out. And she's thinking as she does that, thank God I'm doing this now, not at that meeting. At least those guys aren't going to see me. And then she turns around, and here, those 3 guys were in a limo that was right behind hers. They were following her to the meeting. They were staying at the same hotel. So their faces are pressed up against the window, and she says something like, and I don't remember the exact words, something like, I guess you never saw somebody go to such great lengths to make such a positive first impression. Whatever it was that she said, they laughed, and she laughed. So they went on, they had the meeting. A week later, she's back home. They're sitting in the office, right? And they're waiting for the conference call for them to call and say what they're going to do. So the call from China comes in. Everybody's around the phone. They say, hey, we're going to go with your product. Cheers from everybody else. And he said, but I want to tell you why we're going to go with your product. We're not going to go with your product because it's any better than the other two. We felt like they were all the same. We're not going to go with your product because the price was any better. They were all kind of comparable. We're going to go with your product because we liked the way the girl handled herself when she had throw up all over her face. We liked the fact that she laughed. That's the kind of people we want to do business with. This was millions of dollars of business. It was decided not because of any scientific invention. It was decided because of somebody's attitude. Your attitude can make such a difference in everything that happens to you. Right? It's a domino effect. One good thing leads to another. I love this quote. The only difference between a good day and a bad day is your attitude. And this is the most important thing. The choice is always yours. Not sometimes yours, not occasionally yours, always. Every situation you're in, always yours. Right? So successful people, they work hard. Successful people hold themselves accountable. Successful people have good attitudes. Successful people give people a chance. If I went into every classroom in the school and I said, how many people in here like to be judged? How many hands do you think would go up in the entire school? Zero. Because nobody likes to be judged. Nobody. But we're so quick to judge other people. We don't want it done to us, but we're so quick to do it to other people. And successful people don't do that. They give people a chance. That doesn't mean that they like everybody. It means that they give people a chance. They get to know them before they make an assumption or before, right? Don't judge people before you truly know them. So I learned this lesson when I was at Brandywine High School. Right? When I was at Brandywine High School was a 10 through 12th grade school. So I was going out for football. Well, no sophomore had ever made the varsity team at Brandywine High School. And I was bound and determined, me, Mike Rickey, I was going to be the first one. So I worked my brains out all summer to get ready. Right? So we go to football, first day, Coach Bianco is our head coach, and we had to practice in shorts and t-shirts and helmets for 3 days. Wednesday night at the end of practice, he said, all right, boys, tomorrow we're going to find out who the football player's on. We're going to be full pads. You want to be a varsity football player tomorrow? You need to show me you can hit and you can do what you need to do to be a football player. I didn't even go to sleep. I didn't get in my bed that night. I was so excited. Right? I had worked so hard. This was going to be my chance. I was going to be the first sophomore in history to make the varsity football team. Next day, I could not wait to get to practice. So we get to practice. We warm up. He calls everybody together. He said, all right, we're going to break out in our position groups, and we're going to go live. So I went over with the D-backs. I was a strong safety. And I look, and I see this guy. He's tall and skinny, like really skinny. And he has really long, greasy hair coming out of his helmet. And I said, I'm going with that guy. I can take that, I can break that guy in half. That's the guy I'm going. I counted. He was 6 in line. I came over here, I butt, so I could be 6 in line. Right? So each guy is going. First guys are going, boom, and I'm getting more excited. Second guy's going, boom, I'm getting more excited. Third guys are going, and I actually have this thought in my head. I think, you know what, I feel bad for this kid. I'm going to break him in half. I'm going to ruin his day. You know, I can't. Then I said, no, you got to focus, you got to focus. So I finally get up there. Right, I look at this kid, I see the grease dripping off of his hair, I get down, I look at this, I know this is my big moment, I'm going to make the varsity football team. Coach blows a whistle, boom, huge collision. Next thing I know, I'm literally flat on my back. He ran me right over, 1 foot here, 1 foot on my face, and ran me over. Here's what an idiot I am. That kid was first team All-State D-back the year before. He was one of the best players in the entire state. Right? I looked at him as a skinny kid with greasy hair who couldn't do anything. No wonder they let me butt in line. Who lets a sophomore butt in line? Nobody else wanted to go with him. That was in 1977, 42 years ago. And I still remember like it happened this morning. But I learned. And since that day, I have never made that mistake again. I've never made the mistake of judging somebody before I got to know them. I always give people the benefit of the doubt first because of that situation that happened. I found this poem a couple years ago that kind of talks about that. It's called The Cookie Thief. A woman was waiting in an airport one night with several long hours before her flight. She hunted for a book in the airport shop, bought a bag of cookies, found a place to drop. You guys all right back there? She was engrossed in her book but happened to see that the man beside her, as bold as could be, grabbed a cookie or two from the bag between, which he tried to ignore to avoid a scene. She read, munched cookies, and watched the clock as that gutsy cookie thief diminished her stock. She was getting more irritated as the minutes ticked by, thinking, If I wasn't so nice, I'd blacken his eye. With each cookie she took, he took one too. When only one was left, she wondered what he'd do. With a smile on his face and a nervous laugh, he took the last cookie and broke it in half. He offered her half as he ate the other. She snatched it from him and thought, oh brother, this guy has some nerve and he's also rude. Why, he didn't even show any gratitude. She had never known when she had been so galled, and she sighed with relief when her flight was called. She gathered her belongings and headed to the gate, refusing to look back at that thieving ingrate. She boarded the plane and sank in her seat, then sought her book, which was almost complete. As she reached in her purse, she gasped with surprise. There was her bag of cookies in front of her eyes. If mine are here, she moaned with despair, then the others were his, and he tried to share. Too late to apologize, she realized with grief that she was the rude one, the ingrate, the thief. I see that happen all the time, where we assume something about somebody else so unfairly and so wrongly, and we're the ones who are doing that very same thing. Successful people don't do that. They've learned. So successful people work hard. Successful people are accountable. They don't blame other people. They refuse to be the victim. Successful people have good attitude. Successful people aren't too quick to judge. And lastly, successful people are not afraid to fail. So many people are afraid of failure. And really, failure is so important. It's so important that you fail. And it's so important that you are allowed to fail. Right? The quote's up here. Failure is all the interesting stuff happens. Failure is inevitable. It means it's going to happen. Failure is the best teacher. And that's my favorite one of all. Failure is the best teacher. You learn so much when you fail. Right? So this is Ray Davidson. Ray Davidson, Garnet Valley grad in the early 2000s. Right? When Ray Davidson was in 10th grade, he earned a spot on our varsity football team as a defensive back, corner. Right? And he was so excited to be that guy. He was so excited to be the varsity starter as a sophomore. After 4 games, Ray Davidson was not getting it done. Right? And the worst part of my job is when I have to call people in and I have to tell them, say, listen, Ray, I know how important it is for you to start here, but you're not getting the job done. I'm going to have to put you on the bench. Ray Davidson left my office in tears. He was so upset. Didn't even come to practice that day. Next morning, I come into school here, 6:30, Ray Davidson standing at my door. Mr. Ricky, I'm so sorry the way I reacted yesterday. I was just really upset. What do I have to do to get better? I understand. What do I have to do to get better? Be honest. So I was honest. I told him he had to get stronger. He had to be more aggressive. His footwork had to be better. I went through the whole thing. From that day in October till the end of August, well, till the next August, Ray Davidson did not miss a single day. He didn't miss a workout. He came back to camp the next year. He was bigger. He was stronger. He was faster. He was more confident. Right? Ray Davidson, that year, his junior year, set a school record with 8 interceptions. He led Delaware County with 8 interceptions. He made first team All-Delco. The last game we had that year, and that was before playoffs, we played Sun Valley here. And after the game, we're walking off the field. Ray Davidson comes up. He hugs me. He kisses me on the cheek. And he says, Coach, thanks for benching me. That's not normally how I get when I bench people. I don't normally get people kissing me on the cheek. I said, Ray, what do you mean? He said, Coach, if I hadn't been benched, I would never have worked as hard as I did. I would never have had the kind of season that I did. I would never have been the kind of teammate that I was. Being benched was the single best thing that ever happened to me. Ray Davidson's mom or dad didn't come and scream at me for benching him. Right? They let him learn from the failure. And so many times I see parents who want to swoop in and save their kids when they fail. And the intention's always good. It comes from a place of love. But it's such a disservice when they do that for you. So one of the things I always tell to parent groups when I talk to them is I tell them a story about butterfly. And the story goes like this. There was an old man who was sitting on a rocking chair on his deck. And as he was sitting there, he was getting ready to get up and go in the house. A branch blew down in front of his face. And on the branch there were leaves, and on one of the leaves there was a butterfly in a cocoon. And he could see movement within the cocoon. And he got all excited because he knew he was going to get a chance to watch this butterfly hatch from this cocoon. So he sat in his chair, transfixed, just staring at this cocoon. And he could see the movement, but nothing seemed to be happening. So he watched and he watched and he watched and he watched and he watched. And he watched and he watched and he watched. And he didn't seem to be making any progress. He could see movement, but he didn't see anything start to break through. So after watching for an hour, he finally decided that he was going to go up and he was going to help the butterfly. So he went in the house and he got a pair of scissors and he came out and he snipped away the cocoon, so that the butterfly could emerge. And when he did that, the butterfly emerged easily. It fell right out of the cocoon. But its body and its wings were all shriveled. And he thought in any second the butterfly was going to expand and fly away. But neither one happened. In fact, the butterfly died. Because what the man didn't realize, in his effort to help that butterfly, when he cut away that cocoon, he robbed the butterfly of the chance. Right? Nature's way of forcing fluid into the body was for the butterfly to snip a tiny hole in that cocoon and then force itself through that tiny hole. And that in turn would let the fluids go into the body, and the butterfly would then be able to fully develop and fly away. In his attempt to help the butterfly, he not only crippled, but he killed the butterfly. Right? You have to be able to go through struggles. If you want to become as strong as you can become, you have to be able to go and embrace the struggle that you go through. That's where real growth happens. All right? And this is going to sound weird because I'm a huge kid advocate, but I hope that as you go out into the world, you find something that you really like, and I hope you work really hard at it, and then I hope you fail. Because failure, like nothing else, allows you to get to the next level. We had a girl one time who went to school, or wanted to go to school at Villanova. She was a senior. She was an awesome kid. She had all her eggs in going to Villanova, and she didn't get accepted. She came in here and she cried and sobbed and cried. She was so, almost despondent. She ended up instead going to school in California. Well, when she went to that school in California, she found her niche. She was a superstar on campus. She ended up finding her husband, right? She got a phenomenal job. It was the single best thing that ever happened to her going to California. If she was going to Villanova, who knows what would happen? And she always looks back and she says, "Mr. You remember how upset I got?" Yeah, I said, "Yeah, I'll never forget how upset you got." It was the single best thing that ever happened to me. If you would have told me that when I was going through it, I would have never believed you. Right? Don't be afraid to fail. And the last thing I want to tell you, if you didn't listen to anything that I said all day, I want you to make sure you listen to this. Okay? So, there was a man who lived up in New England who was a carpenter. And he was a really good carpenter. And he worked for the same contractor for over 30 years. And the contractor was a great guy, and they worked together like brothers. Right? The contractor so loved the carpenter that he let all 4 of his kids and the carpenter's wife work in his company, and he took care of them. After all 4 kids graduated from high school and then went to college, they all got married, and they all moved to different spots around the country. One